Most people think regret shows up all at once, like a door slamming shut. But that's not how it really works. It creeps in slowly, over years, sometimes decades, until one day you realize it's been sitting beside you the whole time. My name is Walter Hayes, and I'm 81 years old. And there's one choice I made when I was younger that I never truly forgave myself for, even after a lifetime of trying to justify it. I didn't always know that would be the choice that followed me. At the time, it felt practical, even responsible. That's the thing about decisions when you're young. You don't feel their weight right away. You feel clever for making them. You feel relieved. Sometimes you even feel proud. The cost comes later, when there's no undoing it. I grew up in a small town in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone knew your business before you did. My father worked at the steel mill, 6 days a week, rain or shine, and my mother kept the house running with a kind of quiet efficiency that I didn't appreciate until much later. We weren't poor, but we were careful. Every dollar had a job, and so did every person in the family. From an early age, I was taught that responsibility came before everything else. Before dreams, before comfort, before happiness. You did what needed to be done, and you didn't complain about it. That idea settled deep in me, deeper than I realized. I was a decent student, not exceptional, but curious. I liked history, liked understanding how people ended up where they did, how one moment could change the direction of an entire life. I didn't know then that I was studying my own future in disguise. When I was 23, I met Eleanor. Everyone called her Ellie. She worked at the local library, and I swear she knew every book by heart. You could walk in, mumble half a sentence about what you were feeling, and she'd hand you a novel like it was a prescription. She had this calm way about her, like the world didn't need to rush just because everyone else was in a hurry. We started talking over nothing, really. Weather, books, the way the town never seemed to change. Then talking turned into walks, and walks turned into evenings sitting on her parents' porch, listening to crickets, and pretending we weren't already planning a life together. Ellie wanted to leave town, not in a dramatic way, not with anger, just with curiosity. She wanted to see cities, museums, concerts. She talked about teaching, about working with kids who needed patience more than discipline. When she spoke, her eyes lit up in a way that made you want to follow her anywhere just to see what she saw. I loved her. I don't say that lightly. I loved her in the way that makes you feel steady, not dizzy. With her, life felt like something you could build carefully, brick by brick, without it collapsing. Then my father got sick. It wasn't sudden, not at first. Just small things. Fatigue, shortness of breath, missed shifts. Eventually, the diagnosis came, and with it, the understanding that the mill work had taken its toll. He wasn't going to be able to provide the way he always had. I was the oldest son. That mattered. In my family, it mattered more than anything else. Ellie and I had been talking about moving. Nothing concrete yet, but it was there, like a map folded in our back pocket. A possibility waiting to be unfolded. Instead, I stayed. I told myself it was temporary. I told Ellie it was the right thing to do. I told myself that love meant sacrifice, and that if she loved me, she'd understand. She did understand. That's what made it worse. She waited. For a year at first, then another. She took a teaching job nearby instead of applying elsewhere. She adjusted her dreams to fit my reality, and I convinced myself that was just how adulthood worked. But time doesn't stand still just because you ask it politely. My father's health stabilized but never fully recovered. There was always another reason to stay. My mother needed help. My younger siblings weren't ready. The finances weren't right yet. There was always something. Ellie started changing, quietly. Not in her personality, but in her light. She smiled the same, spoke the same, but there was a restraint there, like someone holding their breath without realizing it. One evening, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded, her voice steady in a way that told me she'd practiced what she was about to say. She asked me if this was the life I wanted, or just the life I felt responsible for. I didn't answer right away, and that silence was the beginning of the end. A few months later, she told me she'd been accepted into a program out of state. A real opportunity. The kind she'd dreamed about before she learned how good she was at compromising. She didn't ask me to come. That hurt, but I understood why. I had already made my choice. We said goodbye like adults. No shouting, no accusations, just a long embrace that felt like standing in the doorway of a house you built together, knowing you wouldn't live there. I told myself I'd done the honorable thing. I stayed. I worked. I helped my family. I married someone else a few years later, a kind woman who deserved more presence than I often gave her. We raised children. We paid bills. We lived a respectable life. And yet Ellie never really left. Not in the way people think. She didn't haunt me in dreams or appear in every quiet moment. She showed up in smaller ways. In the question I asked myself when making decisions. In the slight hesitation before saying yes to things I didn't want. In the sense that my life, while full, had taken a shape that wasn't entirely mine. Years passed. Decades. My parents died. My children grew up. My wife passed away after a long illness, and I grieved her deeply, honestly. Love is not a single-lane road. The heart can hold more than one truth. When I retired, people asked me what I planned to do with my time. Travel, hobbies, rest. I smiled and gave the expected answers. What I actually did was sit with myself for the first time in my life. That's when the choice finally spoke clearly. I realized I had confused responsibility with fear. Fear of disappointing my family. Fear of stepping into a life that didn't come with instructions. Fear of choosing happiness when it didn't look practical. I had told myself I was being selfless, but part of me had been afraid to leave the familiar. Afraid to bet on a future that wasn't guaranteed. I looked up Ellie once, years ago. She had taught for decades. She had a full life, a family, students who remembered her. She had done exactly what she said she wanted to do. I felt relief knowing she was happy. And I felt a quiet ache knowing I hadn't trusted myself enough to follow her. The hardest part of regret isn't the pain. It's the understanding. The clarity that comes too late. When you finally see yourself clearly, but the mirror only reflects the past. If you're listening to this and you're younger than me, I won't tell you to chase every dream recklessly. Life is complicated. People depend on us. Choices are rarely simple. But I will tell you this. Be honest about why you choose what you choose. Don't dress fear up as duty and call it virtue. Don't assume there will always be time later to become who you meant to be. At 81, I've learned that the choices we forgive ourselves for are the ones we understand fully. The ones we can look at and say, I did the best I could with what I knew then. This one still sits with me because I knew more than I admitted, and I stayed anyway. I've made peace with much in my life, with aging, with loss, with the slow narrowing of the world. But this choice remains, not as punishment, but as a reminder that your life is not just what you protect, but what you pursue. If there's something in you that's been waiting patiently, don't let it wait until it becomes a ghost you carry quietly into old age. Listen while the choice is still in front of you.